Life can unravel in the blink of an eye. One moment, everything feels steady, anchored, unshakable. The next, it's as if the ground beneath you has disintegrated into dust. That's where I find myself now, 32 years old, back in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house in Dallas. The walls still wear the faded posters of my teenage years, the desk still cluttered with trinkets I once thought mattered. Surrounded by the relics of who I used to be, I can only laugh bitterly at the cruel irony of it all. I'm Olivia, and this is not the life I had pictured for myself. Never once did I believe I'd return to this room, sifting through memories while untangling the choices that led me back here. And it all traces back to Daniel. We first met at a housewarming party hosted by my friend Rachel. She had just moved into a charming townhouse that looked like it had been lifted from a magazine spread, warm, stylish, perfectly put together. It was exactly the kind of place I had always dreamed of owning one day. But when I stepped inside, the glow of admiration twisted into envy. Rachel's life looked flawless. A thriving career, a fiancé who adored her, a future neatly arranged before her. And then there was me, single, weary from endless swipes on dating apps and empty conversations, starting to wonder if real love would ever find me. That's when I saw him. Daniel stood off to the side, tall, dark-haired, carrying himself with a quiet assurance that seemed to draw people closer. But it wasn't his presence alone that caught me, it was the way he listened. Not the distracted nods most people give while waiting for their turn to speak, but genuine attention, as if every word mattered. We spent hours talking that night, and for the first time in years, something inside me stirred. Maybe, just maybe, I'd finally met someone who wouldn't walk away. And for a while, Daniel was everything I had hoped for. Gentle, attentive, truly kind. With him, I felt a safety I'd never known. Our relationship blossomed naturally, never forced. Within a year, he asked me to marry him. Another year later, we stood before family and friends and promised each other forever. It was everything I thought I wanted, love that was steady, dependable, real. But eventually, that steadiness became the very thing I began to doubt. Somewhere along the way, I stopped recognizing the beauty in his constancy. I began mistaking his patience for boredom. Small gestures, a note tucked in my lunch, the way he always remembered my coffee order, shifted from feeling romantic to routine. He wasn't the man to plan surprise getaways or deliver sweeping declarations. He was the man who showed up every single day, without fail. And instead of treasuring that, I let uncertainty take root. Had I chosen comfort over passion? Settled for safety instead of spark? At first, those questions were faint whispers. But in time, they grew into a storm I couldn't ignore. The breaking point came one evening at a dinner party with close friends. The wine flowed easily, conversation was light, and eventually the topic turned to relationships. Someone asked how you truly know you've chosen the right partner. Without thinking, I let out a laugh and said, honestly, if I had the chance to do it over, I probably wouldn't have married Daniel. The words landed like a grenade. Laughter died instantly. The room froze. My stomach twisted as I turned toward him. Daniel sat motionless, his hand tightening around his glass, his face unreadable. Wow, he said softly, but the edge in his voice was sharp enough to wound. Panic gripped me. I scrambled to pass it off as a poorly timed joke, but the damage was already done. His eyes, once warm and tender, had gone cold. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. That night, he simply went to bed without another word. I convinced myself he'd cool down, that we'd talk it through in the morning, that he'd forgive me the way he always had. But when I woke, his side of the bed was empty. His clothes were gone. His toothbrush missing. And on the nightstand lay his wedding band, placed neatly beside a photo from our honeymoon. I sat there numb, staring at that small circle of metal, trying to comprehend the emptiness he left behind. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I clung to the desperate hope that he just needed time, that once the sting faded, he would come back. But days bled into weeks, weeks into a month. The truth eventually sank in. He wasn't coming back. And what shattered me most wasn't just his absence, it was how easily he seemed to let go. While I drowned in regret, Daniel had already begun moving forward. I found out one afternoon, walking downtown, when I spotted him at a cafe terrace. He was smiling, laughing, sitting across from a woman who embodied everything I wasn't. Elegant, self-assured, effortlessly beautiful. Confidence radiated from her, the kind that didn't need to shout. And Daniel was looking at her the way he used to look at me, like she was his whole world. A rush of emotions nearly pulled me toward him. I wanted to plead, to remind him of what we once had, to beg for another chance. But I didn't. Deep down, I knew he was already gone. And worse, I realized he deserved better than what I had given him. Regret isn't loud. It doesn't crash down like thunder. It seeps quietly into your life, into the cracks of your days, until one morning you wake and understand the damage you've done. I had something extraordinary and let it slip through my fingers because I was blinded by what I thought was missing. Daniel hadn't left because his love faded. He left because he finally accepted that I could never love him in the way he truly deserved. Now I sit in this childhood room, surrounded by fragments of who I once was, crushed under the weight of choices I can't take back. They say you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. That isn't always true. Sometimes you know it's worth all along, you just never believe you'll actually lose it.